Donald Jeffries. Author of Hidden History and Survival of the Richest. Host of The Donald Jeffries Show. Billy Ray Valentine. Host of the Infinite Fringe podcast. Researcher, truth seeker from the Bronx, New York. Tony Arterburn. Radio host, combat veteran, precious metals analyst, and alt historian. Together, they take on the headlines of the week, decode the disinformation, and plow through the mainstream propaganda.
Okay. Well, we were rolling right in with the intro, Don, and in fashion of the last 2 weeks, stuff doesn't work. And it's funny. Yeah. Billy and I are currently, folks, we're in a competition on whose stuff doesn't work the most, and he's winning. But the intro cut out. Sorry about that. It's funny, Don, we really can't count on technology. That's why we need to invest everything into it. Maybe we'll talk a little bit. There was an article that came out. I want to talk to Don about the AI it's becoming aware and using immoral, dangerous actions for self-preservation. So I want to talk to Don about that a little later. But this is America Unplugged, ladies and gents. Again, we didn't have the intro. Billy is currently working on joining us with his system. So thanks for being here. I'm joined by the legendary Donald Jeffries. Welcome to your own show, sir.
Well, I take a backseat to Noah in terms of technical glitches, Tony. So if I'm working the best of you three, I don't know what that says, but there he is.
Can you guys hear me?
I hear you. Yeah, you sound great.
I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, this it's incredible the amount of money that goes into putting something like this together. Sometimes if you want to make it sound good and it just like one thing will just completely throw it off. I know Tony knows everything about
Well,
it.
I just brought us in and the intro stopped. It just like I had the audio was going and it just stopped. So, you got half the intro. We can hum the rest if you want.
I was thinking of just going old school, like when I started and getting a USB mic and plugging it in, and that's the end of it. Right.
I'm thinking, yeah, the more that I invest, the worse it gets. So
I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. Sorry for the screw up. How you doing, guys? What's going on?
Good.
Going good. I was telling Don, and I wanted to open up talking about what's going on with immigration enforcement. It's gotten really bizarre. And there's also a couple of things on AI I wanted to talk about at the end of the show, perhaps if we have time, on AI using some really nefarious methods for self-preservation. They've found. There was an article up on Natural News, but just right out of the box, been watching this really close. I tried talking about it on my show. Everything, of course, we had the same technical glitches, but want to get Don's take, your take. First of all, I'm for borders. I'm a nationalist. I'm a traditionalist. I ran on that when I ran for Congress, and I've been for that. And I have a green bracelet that I wear every day because in 2019 I had a interview with an angel mom whose son worked for the sheriff's department. She's a legal immigrant, and her son Dominic Durden was killed by an illegal alien or legal immigrant, whatever you want to call him. And I thought, well, that's an easy fix. That's a person that shouldn't even be here. So I'm for enforcement, but I'm not sure what I'm watching here, because you see all around the country they're raiding gardeners and housekeepers and people that have overstayed visas. And I see because I know that they would be crowing about it if they hit rounding up MS-13 gang members and cartel members. We are literally at war on the southern border. I mean, there's people that are coming over with the intent to kill and hurt American citizens. They're militarized. That's an actual, should be a shooting war on the American southern border. So, I mean, I'm prefacing my disgust for the current enforcement with how I actually feel, which we should have a border. There should be enforcement. But why are they starting with this low-hanging fruit and that it's not even coherent? Like, I think if you add it up, I think we've discussed this before, the numbers of deportations would most likely, if we actually had data, I bet they would be lower than what Obama did. So I'm not sure what I'm watching. I think a lot of people are quick to get behind this and praise it like alligator Alcatraz or whatever the hell that is. I thought it was funny. My friend Harrison Smith over at InfoWars tweeted out alligator Auschwitz in response to it, because nobody that loves freedom is like, hey, let's really celebrate concentration camps. I mean, it's not something that I reflexively want to do, because that really isn't the issue here. The issue is having an actual border, having rule of law, and then, the hardened people, you go after those people first, and maybe only. There's probably some things you could do with people that have been working here a long time or showed that they contribute in some way. I just don't understand this enforcement. And I got a clip from Joe Rogan. If you guys want to play it here in a minute, we can talk about it. It's kind of filtered up through that world as well. People are noticing, but Billy, I want to get your take. What am I watching?
Well, it's a lot of things, and people know how I feel about this altogether. But we've been warning about this on America Unplugged since the beginning. I felt the need to highlight the assault on citizenship here in the country, and it was pretty much just shrugged off, it's craziness, but we're here now. Now we can see it. It's a tangible thing. The fact that they're selling alligator Alcatraz merchandise is disgusting. It's really disgusting, that they would do this. And then some of the feedback that I get from some of the people, they are all for it. And they're like, oh, it's not a concentration camp. It's not. It's an open air. It's a tent. They set up some tents and some beds. It already got flooded once, and then they're making fun of, oh, they got, alligators and pythons around. And Laura Loomer goes ahead and says that we have 66 million people that we can feed them, that we can feed the alligators. I mean, it's incredible. It's been incredibly eye-opening to live in this world the last 5 months and seeing what I've seen. It's incredible. And other people see it too. They just have totally different interpretations of it, or just don't care what happens to people. And that's the most concerning part about all of this. But you're right. They're not going after the criminals. I don't think anybody here would have a problem with that if they went after actual criminals and got rid of them. And they did to some. But the thing is, and this is where you and I may disagree, Tony, this has been largely overblown. And the numbers are being fleshed out on this, because they're going after everyone else. If they had enough criminals to go after, then they would have been able to go after them and fulfill their numbers. But they purposely lied to the people about this. And they've been lying to the people about a plethora of things for a long period of time. It is psychological warfare, what they're engaging in. And they're going after gardeners. They're going after people that work in farms. They're going anybody that's working, to the point where they're snatching up U.S. citizens that were born here or that became citizens after the fact, people that have been living here for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Somebody died in ICE custody that's been here for about 50 years. So they're going around and taking these people, and in the manner in which they're taking them, they have masks on. They're not identifying themselves. They're just being grabbed and thrown into vans. Listen, if you guys don't believe me, this is a simple Google search. You can find all the footage of everything going on, right? Tossing them in vans. American citizens racially profiling in order to just get whomever they got. Stephen Miller. This is Stephen Miller. This is Stephen Miller's fingerprints all over this. We've been following Stephen Miller closely for quite some time. This is his mentality. He doesn't like people. He is, whether you like it or not, he is a racist of massive proportions. He wants everybody out of here. We played it on the show last week. He said he wanted everyone in America to look like him. That's what he said. Right. Okay. So that's where we're headed. But, even if you don't care about what happens to the immigrants that have come here, you don't care about naturalized citizenship, you don't care about, even, people that may not be of your race, right? You don't care about that sort of stuff. Start caring about you. Let's start getting really selfish about this here. We can join together. Start caring about you, because it's the next logical step in tyranny. They are coming after you. This is what, and I don't know how else to say it. They're already talking. Donald Trump is openly talking about arresting and deporting American citizens, sending them to Libya, sending them to the Sudan, sending them to El Salvador. This is Donald Trump talking about it. So at what point do we start noticing that, what does citizenship actually mean? What does it mean to be an American? They're challenging it. It's going to come knocking on your door. Just because it's knocking on ours right now and it's not knocking on yours doesn't mean they're not coming for you. They're coming for you. We have 3.5 years left of this. He is saying it. Take him seriously. He is saying it. They're going to start deport. They've already done this, by the way. They've just done this to the black and brown people. They're going to start sending American citizens overseas to Africa because they committed some crime, whatever that crime is. And they are the judge, jury, and executioner as to who is supposed to go over there in the first place. This is where we have a massive, we have a lot of problems here in this country now. But the secret police is a real thing. And there is no one that is safe. No one. Say the wrong thing. They're going to go through social media. Why do you think they're gathering all this information from Palantir? Say the wrong thing. See how well that goes for you in the near future. We have to do something about this. It's being fleshed out. We're seeing it on American streets where American citizens are being arrested and taken away. I don't know what else needs to happen for people to wake up here. That's all I got, Tony.
Well, I think I want to throw it to Don, but what I've noticed, and again, it's funny because I want border enforcement. I want to stop all illegal immigration. I want to halt on legal immigration. I think we should have a moratorium. It's been way too much over the past 30, 40 years, especially since the fall of the Cold War. There has to be a pause. We've had pauses before in our national history. So I'm buttressing all of what my problem with this current enforcement is about, like you said, the secret police aspect of it, the database, the lack of due process. If you go and stand in line and talk to MAGA, I saw a guy yesterday on Instagram doing that. They don't have a problem with the lack of due process. I have a problem with that because that's the whole point of having the country. It's the whole point of having rule of law, the Constitution, and the continuity of what we're supposed to be living under. And if you throw that out the window, we have some real problems. So that's my, again, I could be confused. I don't want amnesty for anyone, but there is a limit to what you can do on enforcement in that bulk, because whatever that number is, I love it. And Don can probably agree with me on this. They've said it's 11 million illegal aliens or illegal immigrants since I was 9 years old. So I'm pretty sure it's like 3 times that, at least something like that. But whatever the number is, you're not going to be able to use the limited resources of, the federal government to get rid of everybody that way. There has to be a system put in place, but first you got to stop the bleeding. There has to be enforcement on the border. And I don't see any evidence of that. If they really had a secure border, they'd be letting us know. And I'm going to throw it to Don.
Don, do you mind if I step in real quick? I forgot a couple of points, and when Tony was, I'll be quick, Don. I'm sorry. This shooting war at the border, that's not a thing. It's just not. We need to start thinking about why we want these people out that are being productive and that are working and that are contributing to society, right? They're saying that there's not enough space. What is it? If they're not criminals and they're here and they're working, they're contributing to society. And this is the vast majority of people that are being deported, right? This is the vast majority of it. Why? What's the bleeding about? What is all of this, right? And they've been touting about the lowest border crossings ever. And I believe it. People are self-deporting and getting out of here because that's part of the strategy is to scare the crap out of people.
But it doesn't. But it's not scaring the actual people that'll hurt you. The people that'll hurt you doesn't do anything. That's why I have a problem with the way that they're doing all this.
I think it's horrible. I think it's a horrible thing. But they're not scaring the people that are actually going to hurt you. But they're not going out and getting those people either. Or they rounded all those people up, so now they're getting everybody else. Per Stephen Miller, 3,000 people a day is what he wants. And now with the big beautiful bill, they are ICE is the biggest funded policing force by far in the United States. They're going to triple their funding so they can hire more people and get more people out of here. Whereas they hadn't got more people out than Obama did, and they were very slow going here. I said this on the show a couple of weeks ago, actually, that they are actively looking for ways to change that. And the big, beautiful bill is a representative of that when it comes to funding ICE. So we really got to start talking about this. Like, we don't want amnesty. We don't want this. We don't want that. People are in the country. They're working. They're not being criminals. There's space in the economy for them. Clearly there is, because a bunch of people aren't that have been deported, or people are like in LA. There's a 17% drop in ridership in the subway because people are scared to ride it now. There is a place for the people that have come here, right? And they want to be Americans. Why are we tossing them out? If they're being productive, if they're not being criminals, why are we getting rid of them? We have to start talking about that conversation. We have to have that conversation openly and just say, okay, so we just don't want these people here. Why? Because of the way they look? Because of their culture? What is it? Why don't you want them here? If they are criminals, I get it. There's definitely space. There's work. They contribute. So what is it? We need to have an open conversation about that. I'm sorry, Don. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, this issue exemplifies what I've said about Trump and why I call it the Trumpenstein Project, because anything that's happening in America now, it's impossible to tell the truth. Billy Ray is giving the perception that millions of people have, and they happen to be the millions of people that hate Trump. Now, I don't know what's happening. I do know that it's predictable that it would culminate in something like Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, that's got Trumpenstein written all over it. I mean, you couldn't come up with a more ridiculous, and that will be his accomplishment. And whatever the hell that even is, Alligator Alcatraz. And I don't know if anybody's even going to be in there, if there are any alligators there. This is all orchestrated nonsense. But both sides, actually, I should have said the people that hate Trump, but the people that love Trump are kind of saying the same thing. It's just they support it. I'm looking at it from the perspective, again, I think looking at it dispassionately, I don't know anything that's happening. I look in my area and the lawn crews are still showing up every day. I mean, that should be who they should go after, right? That's the lowest hanging fruit, the people who are cutting your lawns. I don't see any shortage of them. If I drive past Home Depot, there's still, a bunch of them there looking for day work. My point is that if you're going to have, and Billy Ray expresses what a lot of people do, that unless they've committed any crimes. Well, if you have a sovereign nation, to come in illegally is a crime. And maybe a small crime, but that's why they're called illegal, because they're not here illegal. That's why they have a process for that. Otherwise, legal immigration means nothing. And I'm with Tony. I don't think we need any immigration. We have way too many people as it is now, for our resources. They're constantly telling us they can't help people. They can't, tough, go get a job, the jobs that aren't there. So why are you importing or letting even more of the poorest people, poorer than what we have here already? As if I don't think we need rich immigrants either, but we sure don't need a bunch of poor immigrants that are going to want the same resources that we can't even get to our citizens who are living on the streets and crapping in the streets and living in tents. Maybe they'll want to go to Alligator or Alcatraz. I don't know. Maybe they'll feed them there as long as the alligators don't eat them. But maybe people look forward to going there. But I just think that it's like the big beautiful bill or anything else. You can't tell the truth about anything. Everyone has, that's the new woke term, my own truth. Well, everybody has their own truth now. And Trump is right in the middle of this. And the people that hate Trump have their truth, and the people that love Trump have their truth. And for those of us that are not playing that game, there's not many of us. We can't figure out what's really going on. Like the big beautiful bill, I don't know what's in it. I've heard Trump and his press secretary both, his lovely press secretary, both claim that Social Security won't be taxed anymore. I'll find out next year. But all the other people are saying no. The people, it's not in there. So I mean, they're just claiming contrary. And I'm not going to go read the 1,000-page bill or whatever it is. I don't know what's in there. Enforcement for ICE, and I'm sure there'll be more. There's always more money for everything. But I guarantee you, ICE won't perform any better because they're going into this is a problem that should be simple to solve. If people are here, but the problem is it went on for so long. And decades, and however many millions, especially with the open borders of Joe Biden, when thousands were coming across every day. And I do think it must be better than that now. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. But it's, at the very least, we can expect if you're going to have a border patrol, they should be doing their job. So people shouldn't be able to cross the border, but for a long time, for decades, maybe even helping them, they were flying them around the country. What putting them up in hotels again? We have American citizens who they don't want to, they don't want to give unemployment insurance to, or they don't want, they can't get health care. And it's, again, if I think that's the truth, maybe that's not true either. But we hear the stories about the immigrants in the 10-star hotels, which no American citizen can get. You get a mother out there with 5 children, and they're not going to set her up in a hotel. So what is that true? I don't know, but that's obviously wrong. So I would say, just like the defund the police thing, I would say defund ICE and get rid of all our immigration and naturalization services because they're not doing the job. If you're just going to throw your hands up and say there's no difference between how you came in this country, then what is the point of us? What are we paying taxes for? Right. Whatever we're paying those ICE people for, they're not doing their job. But you have I've watched I saw some tweets from Dan Bongino. He got a lot of criticism for it. He doesn't care, but he was bragging about stuff, basic stuff they're doing, things they've always done about who they're catching and stuff like that. And they said you're supposed to do that. When are you going to go to the big fry? It's the same kind of thing. If I don't know, 33, whatever, 33 is that number. Members of something. And they'll say, and they'll act like this. That's a drop in the bucket. And Jeff Runtz, who show him on every Monday, he does the math, and it's at the official rate that these mass deportation is happening. It's going to take that. A lot of people think there's a lot more because they have been saying the same number for a long time. And if you add in, assuming that's accurate, that how many they claim came under Biden's watch, 5 million or something. So if you add that to it, what happened to them? They get added to the mix too. So it's a question of, and the assimilation factor is the big thing here, Billy Ray, is because when you had, and people were prejudiced against immigrants, back when the Italians and the Russians were first coming over as well. The Irish, my boys, the Irish, but the Irish could speak English, but the Russians and the Italians especially had to learn it, but they were willing to assimilate, and more importantly, they were encouraged to assimilate. But what has happened here is that they have developed a permanent. They're encouraged. They don't want Hispanics to learn English. They prefer that they don't, because then they keep them in their place. So, and that's you can't have a society where people can't communicate with each other. That just makes it harder and harder because, of course, if you're looking at it, they already look different to you. They have different habits or whatever. if you can't even communicate to each other, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's why they want it that way. And that's why I always wondered the people that come to this country from, are you going to have second and third generation people working on lawn crews? Because I don't see what other avenues are open to you if you don't learn the language. And again, you're told. When my kids were in school, they have English as a percent for Hispanics. Every other, and I don't know why, because I think they want that permanent underclass, and because the Asian immigrants and stuff are coming, they usually bring money when they come, and they want more people, poor people here. That's why they're widening that base. They like having more poor people, and we look more and more like a banana republic every day. Banana republics have lots of poor people. Well, we're getting more. Our own people are getting poorer and poorer, our own citizens. And now if you just keep letting people in, yeah, they're working hard, but the problem is they're working for nothing. They're getting paid. They're big. It's what I wrote about in Survival of the Richest. The people need to understand that. I mean, and they shame us constantly. They say, well, they're just doing jobs Americans won't do. Who do you think did those jobs? We didn't have Hispanic lawn crews coming in to do lawns back in the 70s. I mean, obviously, we did it. We didn't have Hispanic, women. The landscaping, all this stuff. Now it's the exclusive province of Hispanics because in construction, I can tell you back then, you could make a good living. They paid really well. I mean, it was tough work. But I know a lot of guys that would work it in the summer just to get in shape. But now that avenue is, and I suspect because it's so so many illegals in it, they probably don't pay anything. So what happens? The wages go down for everyone. So immigrants aren't setting the wages. I'm sure they'd like to give it. And I go back to when I worked at the healthcare institution that fired me. They had this was back in the 90s, maybe 80s or 90s. They found that they had a bunch of illegal immigrants working in housekeeping there at that time. Again, that they were exploiting and paying less than they're already pittance they were paying. There was another, they had some working in the laundry. One of them found to do something about it, and guess what? That's what I said. That's when the immigrant authorities get involved. Try to say, hey, this is a dangerous working condition. Well, you weren't here legally. And that's when they'll say, show me your papers. And the whole system is so wrong, and nobody benefits from this. I mean, I guess to people coming from these other countries, it's a better standard of living that they have, but it's lowering our standard of living. That's why it's immigration, but I'm sure he had it in his mind. He was mostly talking about the trade deals and the destruction of unions. But he said that we're going to have the first generation, that would be my children, the first generation that's going to have a lower standard of living than their parents. There's no question. Our children's generation, you think the next generation is not going to have an even lower standard of living? That's not the way it's supposed to work. And before America was on an upward, it's a lot of it is due to immigration. A lot of it is due to the destruction of trade union, not paying proper wages. So if they would pay people properly, I don't think you'd have half the problem with immigration that people have if wages were tied to cost of living and they were anything like they were back when in the 70s and 80s. You could work at a gas station and you could theoretically buy a house, raise a family, have as many kids as you want, and your wife didn't have to work. Obviously, that's impossible now. And there are many factors, but the idea that we can't do anything about this, and you get this big goofball like Trump and this actor Trump, and every move he makes, it looks like maybe sometimes he's trying to do something, but there's always an alligator Alcatraz at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to. Alligator, something stupid with a catchy name to it, and enough of his base will think that's some kind of win. Yeah, we got alligator Alcatraz, and probably would be excited if the alligators did eat a bunch of them. That would probably make their day, I guess. But that doesn't accomplish anything. Make ICE do their job, especially if you've increased their budget. You shouldn't have to go terrorize people. And you're talking about going door to door in the secret police. We've had this problem forever. Our government's been out of control forever. They shot in the 1980s. People forget about that. Now Holmes, they just shot and killed him. Nothing happened to him because they didn't want people homeschooling their kids. They raided health food stores back in the 1980s. The FDA did and killed some people. Again, now it's accepted, but that all happened. A lot of tax protests. I wrote about this in Hidden History. They murdered other tax protesters. Gordon Call, many of them out there. And Gordon Call's son is still sitting in jail forever for something he didn't do. So the government's been out of control. The secret police isn't that secret if they're things, but there obviously can be done without taking those kinds. You just do your job. If somebody's supposed to be here legally, then there ought to be a peaceful process of figuring out if somebody's here legally. I don't understand why anything beyond that. Now, if it's an MS-13 gang member, well, I guess you should have them armed, but the problem is with our police and everybody else, and if you arm them, then they tend to shoot innocent people. That's what they do. And they also can conveniently, as we talked about before, just as they can see every Muslim as a terrorist, they can easily see every Hispanic as an MS-13 gang member or claim he is. So that's a big problem there, but this shouldn't be that difficult. Find out if they're here legally. And again, that's what we're paying you for. So go and if these are communities you suspect that they're there, well, just go in there and ask for their papers. That's all. What is the status? We want to see if you're here legally or not. Now, I don't understand why that's so difficult, but they don't seem to trade on the guy and then getting El Salvador involved with the ridiculous prison there, and there's nothing. There's nothing that has nothing to do with anything. So why they're doing that, I don't know. And we lost Tony. But
no, he stepped out for a second. I seen him. He had to go take care of something.
Yeah, but anyhow, that's my long-winded. But again, that's people. I have nothing against. I am always for the poor and always for the downtrodden. But the problem is having this many desperately poor people and letting them continue is just making more poor people. That's all, because we don't have them coming from Guatemala or anywhere and not being able to speak English and not, before immigrants came and you were thrown in the deep end. Hey, you learn English by assimilation. No, don't worry about it. Ballots, everything's going to be in Spanish, and that's cool. We have ESL for your kids. We don't want you to learn English because we don't want you communicating each other. Because we've talked about this before. The thing they fear the most is ultimately all these different groups, these warring groups, getting together and looking at the real problem, the common enemy, and that's what they don't know. Whether what you're describing, if that's happening, that's terrible. But I don't know, because again, you hear different things. Just like the big beautiful war, any World War III, anything. I don't know what's really going on because we're being lied to about everything, and they always have a reason to lie.
Donald Trump was caught saying a Shylock the other day. I don't know if you saw that, but he was describing bankers, and he said, "Oh, Shylocks" or whatever. And then they asked him about it. They asked him about it, and he was like, "Well, that's not what it means." They were like, "That's very, anti-Semitic, anti-Jew, whatever." And he's like, "Well, that's not what it means to me." Which goes to what you were speaking about, Don. It's really like choose your own adventure, choose your own reality, where that's not what it means to me, right? And that's his explanation of this. But just a couple of things, and then I'll throw it back to Tony, man. I think, listen, there's a lot of people that are very hateful. There's a lot of people that want people out of here just cause, and that's hurtful. There's a lot of Americans here, that have been living here for a long time, and it's like, well, you look a particular way, so you got to go. Or you were like, it should be, show me your papers. Why do we have to show our papers? I am a citizen of this. I was born here. This is my land. I was born here. And somebody in the chat was like, why don't I go back to wherever I came from? Listen, motherfucker. This is my people have been here on this side of the continent for longer than I mean, generations upon generations upon generations. Don't tell me to go back. Why don't you go back from where the fuck you came from? But another thing, I think what we're doing here is, and there's a lot of valid points, that there needs to be a certain amount of assimilation. I totally agree with that. People need to learn English. Now, there are a lot of immigrants that know English that are bilingual. Okay. Many in my family, well, we've been here for some time, but many of my family know 2 or 3 languages. You know, I can speak fluent Spanish and speak fluent English. So there's a misconception about that, even though I do agree that immigrants who come to this country should assimilate to the American way because it's America, right? And I think a lot of the immigrants are out to do that. Things have been painted in a different sense. But what we need to look at is that what happened years ago no longer applies. The United States is dependent on a lot of these things at this point to operate. So if we're going to pull all the illegal immigrants out, we need to start thinking about the economic impact that it's going to have on everyone. As of 2003, documented immigrants households paid $89.8 billion in federal, state, and local taxes. Power. All right, I mean, immigrants injects trillions of dollars of household in wealth in the United States. This is what we do. This is what we contribute. These are verifiable stats to anyone that wants to go look them up. Okay, and immigrants contribute plenty here. You want to start to support it economically? Go to Disney World. You know, if the dumbass that told me that I needed to leave the country, if you ever left your fucking 2-block radius, go to freaking Disney World if you can afford it, and see how many people are there and what language they're speaking. You know, that drives the economy. There's a lot of this here. So we need to come up with a different solution. I am 100% for border security. I think immigration needs to be enforced, right? But also, it's being used, and we need to be conscious of it as people in the alternative realm, the alternative sphere. The immigration issue has been weaponized to take your rights, to take your information via Palantir and via all these militarized. They sent the Marines down to Florida. So now that's LA and Florida. We got Marines on the streets. Ladies and gents, it's only going to get worse. And what are they using to do this? Immigration. And also another thing, Don, I love you, but I'd like for you to stop saying that immigrants take craps on the streets, and that's not.
Just said they're also homeless Americans
that characterizes. It's not a thing that characterizes all Americans. You know, it's just. I mean, all illegals. I mean, most people are here to work. Are there bad apples? Yeah. Absolutely, and you won't get any pushback from me. They need to go. No questions asked, right? Maybe we don't put them in alligator Alcatraz, but they need to go, right? And maybe deport them to their own country, right? I don't know, not the Sudan or Libya or something. But we need to start thinking about this in a rational way, not an emotional way. There's a lot of money being contributed here by immigrants that come here for a better life, and a lot of times pay into programs that they'll never see anything from unless they become documented. So we need to operate from a place that's not cutting off our nose to spite our face here, okay? And sure, maybe we stop illegal immigration for some time, right? Fine. or immigration period, I should say, for some time, right? Maybe we stop that. That's a conversation we should have, and not let any more people in until we sort out what's going on here. But if there's a place, if there is a need, if they fill key aspects of our society and we throw them out anyway, then we need to start talking about why, right? Because if it's like, oh, there's no resources for them, well, there's jobs and they're contributing and putting in money into the economy. So where does that argument go? That there's no research, there's no space. That's bullshit, right? There's space for everybody. That you can fit fucking several countries here in the United States. There's definitely space, right? If we want to cut it off now and say, you know what? No one comes in. We have to fix this. We have to, because no matter how I feel about it, living in the United States, it's a cooperative thing. I need to see what Tony feels and what Don feels. And I'm like, why do they feel that way? And where's the compromise? Where can we come together to work for something that's better for all of us, right? I'm totally open to that, right? Not that we have any, say, because we're not in the Trump regime, but I'm totally open to shutting in, but having a nice conversation about what illegal immigrants, where immigrants do in this country is something that we all need to have. And a lot of people aren't ready to have that conversation because it's going to bring out something that's ugly on the inside. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, let's not forget that this country, they were invited not by the people of the country necessarily, but by the duopoly of the Chamber of Commerce and the Democratic Party, the unification of those things. They were brought in to serve a need, and that's, again, the Democratic Party in a lot of ways was looking for a voting bloc in perpetuity, and the Chamber of Commerce Republicans were looking for cheap labor. By the way, the Chamber of Commerce Republicans and all that didn't change. So all of those donors that want that flow of people to fill those needs, those are still contributing. That's why I think this is, and why I opened up talking about this with the supposition that I'm for a moratorium on immigration. We just had too much, and it's not because I don't want people from other parts of the world. It's just literally, it's never happened, and these sheer numbers have never happened before in American history. I know this because you can go to places like Numbers USA where they've studied it and go, okay, what's the peak amount of people that ever came in the giant waves that we had, the European waves in the 1920s, and it was maybe 200,000 a year, and that's legal. That's people that Ellis Island getting off the boat, all that, and then that was the peak, and then we'd have 10 to 20 years of pause. As a matter of fact, during the Great Depression, there was a pause on immigration, and that lasted until the presidency of John F. Kennedy. So we went through the Great Depression together in World Wars and the Cold War, and that solidified, it helped make the country what it was going into the 1960s. We still had agreements and upheavals, and we still had all that was tearing us apart, even with all of that continuity. So if you add in 1 million new people legally a year, which is what it is, it's 1 million new people a year, plus whatever, and that's hundreds of thousands, I imagine, illegally. It just has to stop. Now, I will say again, we invited them because the two parties got together and said, cheap labor, permanent votes, we want this. So this country has to do a humane thing. And I want to lead to my greater point, which is what I wanted to talk about on my show. Again, we have to do something that's humane. We have to do something that sticks. And there are very violent people that are coming over the border to do harm and for their own ends. And I think this ties to the reason why you're not seeing ICE and those federal agencies hitting, compounds of MS-13 and all the rest of that is because there is some, and not just MS-13, but the cartel members. Now, there is Mexico's a narco state in many ways, and so are we with big pharma, but also ties to the flow of illegal drugs and all the rest of that. There is an underpinning of the black market inside of our corporate structure and our political structure. That being said, so again, I want enforcement. I think there needs to be a moratorium. We got to do a humane thing. I'm not just for getting rid of people, because I think at this point, if you're not a criminal, if there's something that we can do especially if we're not still importing from the rest of the third world 1 million people a year. We can slow that down. It's something we can do. I think we used to be able to. We were a country that could think, and we could actually come up with throw that out there. But the problem that I have with all of this is I don't think this is about immigration. I don't think it is. Because if it was, then they'd be doing something about illegal immigration. Secret police and taking people with masks on and without due process and setting up. I think they're beta testing something.
Absolutely.
I don't think this has anything to do with the color of somebody's skin. I think they're using like we can get this low-hanging fruit, but I think they're beta testing. You add in Palantir and other things. You add in some of these other data systems, and then what people will tolerate. Because if you get behind and cheerlead that somebody can be whisked off somewhere without due process because you got your hat on, well, again, I think that's where people they see the problem, and we've exacerbated it to the point where people were just willing. This is where the problem reaction solution comes in, because the problem is so big. Because again, the power structure did it. You think the power structure is going to turn on itself? I saw something this week, this is indicative of where we are. Kristi Noem, head of DHS, comes out at a press conference and says, "Hey, we've arrested a cannibal that would stop eating himself." And I thought I've seen this. It's called Spaceballs.
I automatically thought of Pizza Hut, bro.
Did you? Did you start a Pizza Hut?
Automatically, bro. Okay.
This is what I'm saying. Like it's so over the top, but I think if we take a step back, and I love Chris Buckins makes me laugh. I mean, it's just like, I know, brother. It's so funny.
Are you guys seeing all the comments about the first? It was my audio, and now they're saying some guy is very, I don't know who, somebody cleverly said my microphone should be deported, which I guess makes sense. But apparently,
you sound good. I don't know what's going on the stream.
They claim we're all choppy now.
Great to me. And that's why I put up Kat's a message, because I didn't want to forget it. I wanted to ask her, like, who is choppy? Is everybody choppy?
Now they're claiming everybody is. First it was me, and now they say everybody is. They say it's
because everybody sounds great to me right now. Like you sound fantastic to me, Don. And typically, when you're choppy, I would hear it.
Yeah, I would hear it too.
Right. So thank you for letting us know. We appreciate. We don't mean to be choppy.
It's a great way to end the week with my.
And to your point,
nobody works. But
first of all, I have footage of the man eating himself that Chris Noem was talking about. I'm going to show you.
Oh, they have footage of it?
I have footage. I have the scoop. It's exclusive. That tomorrow night I will show the footage of the guy eating himself.
I think he was arrested by Lone Star. If I'm not.
You're blowing my spot, man. give me a little something to show to these people. But anyway, to your point though, it's exactly what I think is going down, and they're using immigrants in order to get it over on the people. But my guy here, or my girl, I don't know, GBGN1, who's been very critical of me here. I just want to use this comment. He says, with AI and technology, the need for immigration is null. And you're absolutely right. You know what else is null? You. That's what else is null. You are null. We are null when it comes to the future. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. And something, I try to speak about it from the perspective of empathy towards our fellow human beings. But maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just abandon that and just say, here's how this is going to affect you. Here's how Palantir is gathering all of your information, every single thing. And here's how you are going to be replaced. Not by the immigrants that have come over the border. This is how you're going to be replaced by this AI. There is no manufacturing coming over here. And anything that does will be automated. It will not include you. And this is happening very, very quickly. So please.
And that's why I said, that's why I say, but the idea that we need more people. And it doesn't. I wouldn't care if they were all legal Russian supermodels who are going house to house and doing housework in the nude. You know, we don't need them. You know, we don't need any more people here. And the idea that they know that all these jobs are going to be eliminated and going to AI. So you already have, and you already don't have enough jobs to go around as it is. Wages have been lowered because of a variety of factors, including immigration. At the lower end, blue collar, the middle class is being completely squeezed out of existence. So you're going to have to. This is setting a plate. They're going to the fact that the younger people are going to overwhelmingly support some kind of universal basic income. No question about it, because they won't have any choice. They won't have any job opportunities, and with however many extra people are here because of immigration, even if they weren't here, even if we had had no illegal immigration for the last 40 years, we still wouldn't have enough jobs to go around. So this is the problem. And then when you throw AI in there, nobody's asking, okay, what are you going to do then? The Republican answer is just become an entrepreneur. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't work. Oh, why can you be an entrepreneur? I did. My kid did. And the Democratic alternatives, I don't know what their alternative. They really don't have one. But so we have to figure out some kind of way. How are you going to survive? Are you just going to have people? Eugenicists are going to win, and is the ultimate this step that they want people not only crapping but dying in the streets? Is that what they want? They want people eventually they'll just die out. I remember Rush Limbaugh very famously said before he got sick that healthcare is a luxury. It's not a necessity, and that's where it is already now. The useless eaters. So if you get enough, and they're getting more and more useless eaters in here. So if you get enough useless eaters, they're just going to cull the herd themselves. And that may be the objective. And then whoever's left, okay, we still have enough jobs for you. So go for the. And do you think the young people now that are try talking to some of them? Do you think they already have given up hope? The vast majority of them of getting any kind of a career or having any kind of future of the white picket fence. None of them are getting married. None of them are having kids. Their home ownership is out the window. They're lucky if they can rent an apartment with rents. So that's going to be an easy sell. Okay, you're going to get whatever the figure they come up with, 25, 30, whatever they can eke out a bare existence so they can play video games in their basement or whatever. They're going to take that, of course. Okay, cool. I don't have to try to figure out how to apply for benefits. It's almost impossible to get. I don't have to go apply for a job where 250 other people are applying. It's a long process online, and ask you a couple hundred questions, and they want to pay $12 an hour. Yeah, I'll take the universal basic. I know if I was a young kid, I would, because I would probably throw up my hands and say at this point, there's, as Tucker Carlson said to the conservatives who used to come on the show, what is your alternative to this? You have the politicians like AOC and Bernie Sanders and everything. They're going to push UBI and things like that. What's your alternative to socialism? It can't be this, because this cruddy capitalism is failing 80% of the people. So it's not a selling point. And just for conservatives to say, become an entrepreneur. And that's the answer to everything. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. Yeah. 90+% of businesses fail in the first year. And you need startup funds, which, 70-some% of Americans only have $500 in the bank. But they're living under it. So that's, again, that's why I don't think either party is the answer. It's tough. It's a big mess.
We have our own entrepreneur here, Mr. Tony Arterburn, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do. But to that point, I'm
only 25 years old. Have you seen my
beard? You look fantastic.
Like great. I'm 20.
Your arm is larger than my head. You could put both of my arms together, and they'll still
full of cortisol. I'm just full of stress hormone.
Well, either way, give me some of the stress hormone. I can use it. Regardless of that, I want to inject the point here. To the entrepreneurship of all of this. And it's very difficult to do, but almost 1 in 4 entrepreneurs in this country are immigrants. 1 in 4. Okay. About 46% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children. 46% of the Fortune, including Elon Musk, by the way. Okay. Who is the richest man in the world. Elsewhere, immigrants are helping to ease the labor shortage in the healthcare industry, where nearly 16% of nurses and about 28% of health aides were immigrants in 2023. There's a lot more here that's not being told to you by your bubble that you're in. Okay, there's a lot more here that we need to consider. Okay, and if we want to deport everyone, which is where people are going, and happily doing this, this is going to affect you. By the way, before I turn this over to Tony, GBGN1 said, BRV the Hut, I am very delicious. It's very hard to stop, tasting on the nectar.
Chris Buchan also said, speak for yourself about the Russian supermodels. He said, we can find a way to have, they don't have to complain.
Go ahead.
Well, and I think the spirit of entrepreneurism too is a good uniter right now, because it's even harder to start anything because of what Don said. That either you got the downward pressure of the Bernie Sanders and the socialists, or you have the crony capitalists, which they want to make sure that both of those entities want to make sure that you never compete and you can't grow and you can't ascend and you can't go up the economic ladder. And we've since 1971 been in this experiment where our currency constantly loses value. So you work harder and harder to make less and less. It is a magic trick that is actually evil. And it's some of the things that I study every single day. It's harder and harder for the average person to get upward mobility. You are right about a great many immigrants come here. It's a huge percentage of start businesses, or they've saved up for 3 generations to buy something. You see that a lot in the Pakistani Indian community with convenience stores. I come out of the convenience store industry for my family and watched that for years. I know many of them. One of the most successful convenience store operators and fuel operators I know, when the Russians invaded his home in 1970.
And they'll work together. They'll work together, unlike American families. American families, you'd be lucky not to have one homicide at least if you try to start a business with your family.
That's minimum one homicide, and certainly embezzlement. We'll have embezzlement everywhere. But no, I think I applaud that. I think that's good. The issue is, it's just like I saw an article up on Drudge today. There was a huge protest in Mexico City yesterday because Mexican nationals are like, we don't like all these white people here that are just trying to gentrify and take over these neighborhoods and this touristy area. This is our place. And it's pretty violent. They burned some stuff and looted places and went, nuts. And they're saying, we don't want you here. This is our house. And it's our culture, it's our culture. I'm not saying that's right, by the way, but that is what happened. And it's probably not the majority opinion, but there's a sentiment out there. You go into anybody's backyard, anybody's culture. I don't think there's anything wrong with America trying to retain some sort of center core. Matter of fact, there's nothing wrong with it. Japan will be Japan in 50 years, and so will Russia, and India will be India like it always has been. America will be a question mark. What the hell is it? What are we? What do we believe? What language unites us? What values unite us? This is what immigration is about. However, I do agree with what Billy's saying. Just the tactics that are being used in this, whatever the hell this is, and I do not think this is about immigration. I think this is illegal immigration on the southern border. If I was governor of Texas, I would have done this years ago. Greg Abbott loves it. He just wants to make political statements and bus people to Martha's Vineyard or some shit. And I can't stand that sort of political theater when you have people that crossing the border, and I don't mean somebody coming up to work and go to Home Depot. I'm talking about sophisticated networks of people that are trafficking human beings. And I don't care about drugs, but those drugs are used for terroristic things. They're used to supply and create a narco state. You could shut that stuff down. They choose not to. So I have a problem with that not being taken care of. And then you're just going after gardeners and people that are just living their life peacefully. And you did break the law, but this country invited those people. Both parties invited everybody that's illegal here because we didn't have border security. Since I was a little boy, saying we're going to secure the border, they never did. The problem is so metastasized into what it is now that they can use it, I think, as a guise to do whatever the hell they're doing here. I'm just, for the record, it's the 5th of July, 2025. I don't think what's happening with ICE and all the rest is about immigration.
And man, hey, I think it is, but I think it's more about something else. I think immigration is a small part of what's going on with all of this, and we are the beta test. I think Tony hit it right on the head. I think he laid it out as best as possible. And no one, I shouldn't say no one. There's a lot of Americans that care. There's a lot of Americans that see the struggle and that have a different perspective than what's held in the alternative right and in alternative circles, but they're using the illegal immigrants to be able to get at you, and you're inviting it. And you want to talk about a psyop. This is it, man. You don't have to go too far to find real conspiracies that you can dig into and look at how we're all being manipulated. I would urge people to continue down that road we have gone over. And we're very choppy, apparently. So the choppy episode will end. What's up, Tony? What's up?
I checked this on the podcast. I don't think it's going to be choppy on the podcast. I think there's something with StreamYard on the stream going out. We apologize. I'll re-release this in podcast form as soon as we're done. I think we're going to be okay.
Re-releasing it on the podcast to everybody listening on the podcast. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming back week after week. Thank you for holding us accountable whenever we don't put out an episode. Like, hey, what happened? What happened? That's dope. So thank you so much. And it's a ton of people listening over there. We can use more. So let's get that done. But thank you so much for being here. Everybody that's listening right now, a day after the 4th of July, we could have talked about a lot of things. This conversation carried us, but the big beautiful bill, of course. People are dying in Palestine of starvation right now. Like nothing's stopped over there. The Ukraine is getting bombed relentlessly. Nothing stopped. Nothing has stopped. It's just our attention has been diverted from everything else. So we're going to try to hit all of those topics tomorrow night if we go live. Tony Arterburn, the wisest of all the wolves. Thank you for holding it down, brother. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here in the beginning of all of this. Tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, I'm glad you could finally join our choppy episode, Billy. It's good to see you. Now, sorry for that. Well, hopefully, Nick, I'll clean up the audio issues next. I'm constantly working on it. Somebody in the chat said Tony should use some of his gold money to buy Don Mike. I have. We got laptops, and I do. I love Don. I will get more. We need to try one more. I have a mic that I'm going to send.
I think he sounds great today, though. That's the thing.
I thought he sounded great too. It's a one day we're all like, we sound so great, and the audience is like, you sound terrible. Chris Buckin said, Glocker, Smith and Wesson. I like a wheel gun. Nice. That's what I carry. I got a 357 wheel gun, Smith and Wesson.
Damn, shit! Don't
turn use the barrel, and you got the butt of the gun. Then it's like old school. You run out of bullets, and then that's just I don't know. I think like
very nice, Tony. Very nice. Thank you.
That's Nietzsche on my shirt, by the way. Twisted Pistol wants to know it's Nietzsche. It's Frederick.
There you go. Don Jeffries, the wisest of all the wolves. No, that's Tony. Don Jeffries, the legendary. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'll take the wisest.
The wisest of all the wolves. What's up?
Yeah, I know people can find me obviously on Substack. Please subscribe. I wrote about the July 4th yesterday, a typical thing about the founding fathers, and we didn't get to talk about that. But hopefully people had. If you tuned in my show yesterday, I didn't have one because it was July 4th, so hopefully you had a good time. But next Friday, I have a big guest, Sybil Edmonds, who was a big-time whistleblower for a while, and she hasn't done an interview in like 4 years, and she's coming back. She's making her comeback on my show for some unknown reason. So hopefully we don't have technical glitches or so that would be next Friday on I Protest. Follow me on Substack, Donald Jeffries on Substack.com. I protest just like my podcast.
Fantastic. My name is Billy Ray Valentine. 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night on Tony's X and on Ground Zero Plus. We're going to be streaming. We're going to be talking about a bunch of this stuff. There's a lot that we left out of this episode, the choppy episode. And like I said, I have exclusive footage of the cannibal that was eating himself on his way to Alligator Alcatraz. Ironic when you have all these alligators out there that can eat you, you just start eating yourself. Talk about being proactive. Screw this. You start eating yourself. So I won't win at all costs. I'm going to eat myself if that's what. So we have exclusive footage of that, tomorrow night on the show. And I think that's it. There's other stuff I wanted to mention, man, but I don't remember. So let's get up out of here. Sorry for the choppy audio. Oh, one thing, Tone, and Don, if you remember, but I got an email from somebody, I don't remember the guy's name, talking about stocks, and I was like, that's impossible. I'm like, we covered that heavily here, not necessarily heavily, but we covered it, and I definitely went in because I thought it was an illegal action by Trump. So we definitely spoke about this, but he says that I personally did not, and that I should get him the footage of me doing so. So there's a couple of things here. I was like, I'm not going to get you. We've done 300 episodes of America Unplugged, at least. I'm not going through all of those. You know where they are. So happy hunting.
You have been known to cover up for Trump before. So I can say
of course. Thank you for it. First, I have been known to cover up for Donald Trump. Like, why wouldn't I? But anyway, so then play us out.
Yeah, I remember that episode. It was, you were the bump stock buddy. You believed that he should ban him, and I remember that you came in, and that was the whole episode.
Right, and I was like so for Trump to the point that I started eating myself.
You did. He just started eating himself, and
let's get out of here, Tone.
It's a huge. Yeah, after you just Stephen Paddock had those bump stocks supposedly, along with that and some Saudi Arabian helicopters with wheel guns and
that's
anyway. Okay,
right.
Get this out of here. Let me put it. I'm gonna an exit here. Hold on. Let me try to get us out of here by sharing the screen. This is me on my laptop. I'm gonna see if I can get us out of here. All right, stand by, guys.
All right.
Just gonna play us out.
1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. There you go.